Hello Summoner, welcome back to another ProGuides video. My name is Nathaning and we're going to be talking about the 10 best solo carries on patch 11.24b. These are the champions that are overtuned enough to hard carry games and are considered safe to blind pick with little to no bad matchups that can completely shut you down. Do note that the champions in this video are generally the most meta picks for the role, and as a result, most of them are contested or banned pretty frequently. If you're looking for champions to play that are much less contested, check out our top 3 champions in main series. The champions in those videos are still strong enough to carry with, but are low in both pick and ban rate, meaning that you're more likely to get your hands on them. We'll be starting off in the top lane with Riven. Regardless of the meta, Riven's insanely high skill cap makes her a champion that can always be a monstrous carry in the right hands. In lane, a good enough Riven can survive even the hardest matchups, it's just a matter of knowing how to deal with each one. Take Garen for example. This is a classic counter that people like to use, especially in lower elos, but if you're good enough with Riven, you just know that you have to E away every time he uses his Q. But against Darius, you want to dash into him to escape the outer cleave of his Q, allowing you to take a better trade. Playing practice tool will help your mechanics as far as comboing and animation cancels go, but to learn the specific matchup things, the only real way is to get some actual game time in with Riven. It'll definitely be a little bit of a process, but once you do all get it down pat, you can see that Riven is the most 1v9 champion in the game. While she's definitely most at home at split pushing, Riven's mobility means that she isn't nearly as kiteable as other bruisers, so don't be afraid to group up around dragon fights or objectives in general. Whether you're trying to learn to abuse the broken champions on this list or how to deal with them when you end up on the wrong side of the matchup, if you really want to speed up the process, you should check out ProGuides.com. We have courses from all your favorite streamers and pros like CoreJJ, Aframu, and Nick Smithy to really help you understand how to play your role. And if you want a more personalized experience, we have coaches available 24/7 to really help you become the best. Our coaches are top tier players that have spent years climbing the solo queue ladder to get where they are now, and they're ready to share everything that they've learned with you. So stop spinning the wheels on your own and get on the fast track to higher elo today. Now let's get back on topic, shall we? Our other top laner is Fiora. Like Riven, Fiora's high skill cap makes her a champion that can deal with a lot of situations as long as you can parry the right thing at the right time. Fiora has historically been a more scaling-oriented champion that usually doesn't come online until mid-game. But this somewhat newish build where you run Grasp and Rush Divine Sunderer makes laning a lot easier and gives you better short trades. Stack up Grasp on minions and then Q in to pop in on the Vital. As well as applying both Grasp and Divine Sunderer, you'll be forcing your opponent back in no time. Once you make it out of the laning phase, you want to try to stay in the side lane as much as possible. Small scale skirmishes are okay too, but as a general rule, try not to 5v5 in the earlier parts of the game. Fiora does plenty of damage, but she's also relatively easy to kite if the enemy team has tools to slow you down. So don't waste your time, build up a farm lead in the side lane and then trade Dragon for a tower or two. Now looking at the jungle, our first pick is Viego. Viego might be the #1 champion in terms of 1v9 pop-off potential thanks to his passive. It's one thing to be able to burst down the 20 and 0 carry that your team has fed. It's another, much better thing to be able to burst down that same 20 and 0 carry and then take over their champion and mow down the rest of their team. Just be careful who you take over with, because my favorite thing to see against Viego players is when they take over my horrible teammates and they're just, way weaker. Viego's early game has a little bit of a slow startup, since his clear isn't quite S tier in terms of speed, but still it's very healthy, and you're never at risk of dying to an evade. Just don't force any dumb team fights for Scuttle Crab. Contrary to what other junglers think, you don't need to coin flip the entire game on a single jungle monster. Just wait for the right skirmish or team fight to happen and then you'll be able to pop off and pick up the kills that you need to get snowballing. The other OP solo carry jungler that we have for you is Kha'Zix. Out of all the assassins in the League of Legends, Kha'Zix has been one of my least favorite to play against. That's because Kha'Zix just doesn't have one big burst of damage like most other assassins. For them, either they kill their target in one go or they don't. If they don't, then they're not very useful. For Kha'Zix, his Evolved W provides a lot of utility that, in my opinion, assassins shouldn't really have. As far as his damage output goes, Kha'Zix is designed to stay in fights for a very long time, so even if you aren't fed enough to completely one-shot an enemy, it doesn't really matter. The chain stealths from your ultimate and Duskblade allow you to stay in fights for several seconds, so you get more than one chance to bring down your mark. Now for the mid lane, the first pick that we have for you is Qiyana. There are plenty of assassins in the mid lane meta at the moment, but when it comes to taking the entire team on your back with constant proactive plays, Qiyana is the best in class right now. When trading, she bursts very hard, very fast. So pretty much no other champion can return as much damage as you deal to them. All you really need is a serrated Dirk, and this trading becomes so oppressive that most opponents just will concede the lane entirely. While this may prevent them from dying to you 1v1, it allows you to roam and cause chaos on the map. And Qiyana's roams are absolutely disgusting. Having a root and a huge burst of damage means that you can very easily work with a jungler to go in for an evade, or just look for a 4-man gank bot lane. Post 6 diving is a pretty easy task since the enemy bot laners will be hugging their turret in an attempt to survive, which just makes them easy target for your ultimate stun. The other mid laner that you may want to pick up is Vex. Even with all their OP items that they just got this preseason, mages as a whole still have to deal with a somewhat volatile laning phase. Assassins like Zed and LeBlanc can smash you in lane entirely. If your jungler doesn't hold your hand, then I can relate, nobody holds my hand, and you may end up on the wrong end of the snowball and never get to abuse your mage's OP mid game. But Vex is the perfect self-sufficient pick for dominating those bullies. If they go in for a trade, you mitigate their damage with your fear and your shield and burst them back for a lot more than they can hope to do to you. This strength persists at all stages of the game, so you don't really have to be afraid of side laning later on just because your opponent is an assassin. If anything, you will be the one assassinating them if they move up too far. Aside from her 1v1 strength, Vex is of course a strong team fighter. With a lot of mages relying on teammates to set them up, Vex can engage on the enemy team on her own, burst them down, and use her fear to prevent much retaliation. Moving things down to the bot lane, the very first ADC that we have for you is Jhin. Jhin is pretty much a good pick in every single meta simply because he's the go-to lane bully for ADCs. Support diff aside, he wins pretty much every matchup. An early lead on Jhin can very quickly snowball into a very strong mid game, and once there, it's really hard for the enemy team to deal with you. He may not have mobility in forms of a dash or a blink, but the movement speed that he gets from his crits thanks to his passive makes it super easy to kite fed divers that come your way. He also has the benefit of being able to contribute to fights from several screens away with his ultimate, for those times when it's a little bit too dangerous to walk up and you don't really trust your team to peel for you, which as an ADC, this is probably where your trust issues stem from. The other ADC that you want to take a look at for this patch is Twitch. Other hyper carries like Jinx and Kog'Maw may have better DPS in super long, extended fights, but Twitch itself opens them up for some unique benefits that other ADCs don't have. He's basically an assassin, and having the ability to be proactive and go after targets on your own is better for solo carrying. Given the fact that that's exactly what this video is about, he's a perfect fit. In laning phase, you'll want to target the mid lane a lot. Obviously, you don't want to just randomly leave lane and give up farm, but if you can show up mid after you go back for a reset, you can very often surprise the enemy mid laner and pick up a free kill. Yeah, it's pretty cheesy, but it makes sense because, you know, as a rat, they love cheese, right? I don't even know. Later on into the game, you can constantly look to pick off squishy opponents that try to farm in a side lane. If you think that you'll be going for picks like this more often than you'll be team fighting, then definitely consider Collector over Hurricane as your second item. Now for our supports, the very first pick that we have for you is Lux. Even when you aren't playing her in the middle lane, Lux does a pretty good chunk of damage. Landing a full combo on an enemy champion will probably one-shot them as long as you're building full AP. That's the key part. If you want to solo carry as Lux, don't be the coward that runs Guardian and build enchanter items. Build full damage and invest in control wars so you can constantly look for picks over walls when the enemy team moves in to establish their vision. If the enemy team is super beefy, you may want to consider going for Void Staff immediately after Source Shoes. This is a good idea even if you haven't bought any MR yet, because supports make quite a bit less gold once they finish their support items, and it can take a long time to get your big third item. Some people don't consider mages actual supports. They think that you should play an enchanter or a tanky engage support or find a different role. We want your take on it. So for today's question of the day, I ask, do you think mages count as real supports? Let us know your answers in the comments down below. Finishing off our list, we have Zara. It's a pretty common knowledge that supports are generally the ones that dictate the way the bot lane goes. This is why ADCs hate laning against super passive enchanter players. It feels like they're having to deal with a 1v2 the entire time. With Zara, you can basically 1v2 the enemy bot lane, using your plants to harass from across the screen. Exerting all this pressure makes it very difficult for the enemy ADC to even move up and farm. Meanwhile, your own carry is able to see us at their leisure. Usually, a poke mage's natural counter is hard engage, but Zara's all-in strength is just about as good as her poke. Her full damage does a ton of damage up front, then her empowered plants help mow down the rest of her opponent's HP bars. Out of lane, Zara has control mage as zone control. Even just a single attack from one of her plants gives a lot of poking power, as it applies the burn for both Leandry's and Demonic Embrace. All this sticking damage really starts to add up when it's time to siege or dance around Dragon or Baron. And that wraps things up for our 10 best solo carries, patch 11.24b edition. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure you sub so you never miss out on our meta guides and you're always in the loop on what the best picks are. Remember to let us know if you think mages are real supports down in the comments below. And one last thing, don't forget to check out our Discord in the description below, where you can enter a giveaway or just hang out and be part of the community. I'll see y'all back in the next video, but until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and have a wonderful holiday season. Peace.